We begin this third hour of the program by talking about nicotine and the various devices that you can consume nicotine. One of them is these nicotine pouches, right? Zonic is one of the brands that some people are using. Now, a recent decision by the federal government means that these nicotine pouches can only be sold at pharmacies. They're banned from the shelves of convenience stores and gas stations. Now, you may already know this, that here in Quebec, there had already been rules put into effect, much along the similar lines when it comes to these pouches. Along with that, some of the flavors are now gone from Canada. Berry flavor, tropical flavors, those are gone. Only menthol and mint flavored pouches will be allowed. Let's find out what the Quebec Coalition for Tobacco Control thinks about this. And Flory Doucas joins us, co-director of the organization. Flory, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Elias.
So listen, in our conversations over the years, you know this. I hate tobacco, nicotine. I hate the stuff. Never touched it. My dad smoked for 70 years. Worst thing ever. I hate cigarettes and nicotine. I'm not a fan, okay? Mm-hmm. But then I look at all of these other products and the bans that have come into place. And then what happens when you enact a ban? For instance, you ban flavored vapes. And then people just go to illegal websites or they go to the reserve, Ganawake, they go and buy the stuff there. So I'm always worried about what happens when you do bans. Much the same sort of story here with nicotine pouches. Flory, tell our listeners from your perspective where you stand on this recent move by the federal government that was just announced.
So, yes, I think this is a very good development. As you mentioned, there are already measures in Quebec. The measures were not brought in by the government, by pharmacists themselves. In Quebec, the regulation for nicotine products that aren't covered as vaping or smoking through the smoking and vaping law must be sold in pharmacies. But they were, up until January, they were being sold just like in a regular section of the pharmacy. And pharmacists were seeing that these products were being purchased by very young people, and they were left with very little power to prevent that. So there are no rules that prevent the sale of these products to minors. That's still the case, and some people see that as a loophole. And so pharmacists decided in Quebec to keep the products behind the counter. Now, that's very good for Quebec, but that wasn't the case in the rest of Canada, except for BC. And what we've been seeing these past few months are that the products are extremely popular among young people. We don't have the data, but we are seeing that through social media, coaches are reporting the popularity of the products among their teams, etc., in schools. And so there is this fear that these products are going to gain traction even more so among young people. And that's why it was important for the federal government to move in, reduce the appeal, reduce access, and that's what's being achieved. Will more be required? You know what? Probably, because we've seen what the industry can do with vaping products. Mm-hmm. And we have seen governments being a bit lax about enforcing regulations. But it's still a good step forward, especially for Quebecers, because this will prevent this easy access online sales that we've been observing, and also just reducing the appeal of the product with mint and menthol also means that it's easier for enforcement authorities, all enforcement authorities, to intervene when they see other products, other brand names that are maybe even illegal, that are being sold in other flavors.
Can I ask you? You said young people, and I want to get this stuff down because pharmacies. Yeah. I imagine they're not selling to 14 or 15-year-olds. Were you talking you're talking about 18-year-olds? Are we actually talking about adults here?
So so it's still the case. This product it was being sold as a natural health product. That's how it was authorized. Mm-hmm. And back even, I'd say, 20, 25 years ago, for the nicotine patches, the nicotine inhaler, those lozenges, they do help smokers quit. And the idea was that they had been on the market for many years. Their marketing was seen as responsible. The products were not being marketed in a way that made them appealing to youth. We had no crisis of youth wanting nicotine patches or nicotine inhalers. And so the idea was to make them readily available, and people didn't need a prescription for these products. And it also meant that young people, so underage kids, would be able to purchase them. But they weren't popular, so it wasn't a problem. This product that's being marketed by Imperial Tobacco changed that context, because it was being marketed in a way that was attractive to youth. You mentioned some of the flavors. Mm-hmm. We also saw promotion of initially with young adults using the products in a kind of a cool fashion in a cafe, during a hockey game, etc. So all the perfect cocktail mix to make the products appealing to youth. Okay?
Yes.
And so in that context, we are like, okay, it's one thing to have these nicotine replacement therapies that are readily available, but this new product that's recently being introduced in the market is problematic with its marketing, and governments need to address that. And that's what's being done.
Why wouldn't it be okay? Like, because your point taken, marketing to young people, that's, I'm not a fan of that. But let's say you put it behind the counter at the pharmacy and you let any flavor happen, but it has to be sold to an 18-year-old. Like, why wouldn't that be a good solution here?
Because now there is this demand among youth. And so we need to reverse a situation. And it is a relatively new product. I mean, it is a new product. Okay. Yeah. It was authorized last summer. We started to see it on the market in October. And when we start to see the one that was authorized, we then a few months later, we started to see illegal brands being sold in Canada. So the fact that it was authorized, when other companies saw what Imperial Tobacco was doing, they got into that market too. I think that the flavor issue is a serious one, because it allows for all kinds of marketing to occur around it, and it trivializes what the product is meant for. So it's not a complete ban on the product. There is still a series of attractive flavors, because it could actually be a mix of mint and menthol, but it serves the purpose of just diminishing the appeal. And I think that governments can take it from there. If we see that the current measures are sufficient, that's fine, and maybe they can move into be more generous, less restrictive with flavors. But for the time being, we needed these robust measures with respect to the appeal of the product. And I just want to say that pharmacists in Quebec were saying up until now, because the product, you need to see the pharmacist to get access to this product in Quebec. We're saying that kids are coming to them saying that they want to quit smoking. And it's hard for them to say, no, I don't want you to have access to this product if it's meant to help them. And it's authorized as a cessation a cessation tool. So in that context, it's important to also deal with the specific characteristics of the product in and of itself.
What do you say to someone that says, well, look, an 18-year-old can go and buy every single alcohol imaginable. They get marketed to nonstop, all right, on that front. Right now, we in this country, in Canada, we sell cannabis at stores. It depends on the province. In Quebec, it's age 21, but in other provinces, it's a free-for-all, right? It's Wild West, private stores. They sell anything, gummies, flavored, all that kind of stuff. What do you say to someone who says, my goodness, we have let people drink as much as they want, now take cannabis to a level and buy it from the government or buy it from third parties, whatever they want, and we're cracking down on the nicotine pouch? What do you say to someone who says that, you know what, there's something wrong about that?
So you're talking to a spokesperson for Tobacco Control Coalition. You know, I have my my area of expertise and the area in which I can speak. But if we're speaking about alcohol, as a citizen, I can tell you, yeah, I do think that the regulations with respect to alcohol are inadequate to protect young people. That's for sure. But I'm not an expert on what should be done. I can tell you in terms of nicotine that we are on the right path. We have reduced smoking, but we're seeing the industry react with all kinds of innovations, and that's led to having the same number of people addicted to nicotine now than we had 10 years ago, and that's what we need to address. Nicotine is highly addictive. In many, many respects, far more addictive than alcohol and even some of the other drugs. So I don't think that we should be taking that lightly. But does that mean that we should be doing more on some other files? Well, personally, I think yes.
Flory, I got to leave it there. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much.